What's going on, everyone? So teams are moving quickly in acquiring head coaches. You just saw the Phoenix Suns literally like 12 hours later hire Mike Budenholzer as the head coach. They gave him a 5-year deal. Now, it's not one that I'm really like upset or bothered by. I kind of didn't want the Lakers to acquire him as their head coach. I had concerns that might actually be the case. So I kind of feel like the Suns may have saved the Lakers from themselves a little bit. Although, if I'm being honest, I don't really think the Lakers would have signed him. I think the Lakers already know who they're going to sign. Like, we're getting a lot of smoke about JJ Redick, and usually when there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a lot of smoke. JJ Redick's even talking about why he wants to coach and why he wants to be a head coach and all this stuff. And, the only other team that interviewed him was the Charlotte Hornets, and they just signed Charles Lee. It just kind of feels like we're heading in that direction. But the Lakers are scheduled to do interviews this coming week. They have 4 coaches slated for that interview process. JJ Redick, of course, being one of them. Kenny Atkinson, David Edelman, and then James Borrego. He's the one that was the Charlotte head coach. Stay away from James. He wasn't very good with Charlotte. Now, you could argue Charlotte's terrible, but he also didn't really do that team any favors. So basically, Kenny Atkinson, which is probably the best pick, for being honest. Like, I think JJ Redick has the most upside. And I've talked about this because, again, one of the positives that I think come with JJ Redick is he's not set in his ways, right? Like, most assistant coaches, most head coaches, right? They have their ways, right? Like, look at Darvin Ham as a great example. What coaching tree did he come from? Mike Budenholzer. He was a clone of Mike Budenholzer. He wasn't as good, but he was still a clone. You are what you're taught, right? And there's a reason that some of the biggest companies in the world actually prefer people that don't have experience in the field, because then they can shape them and mold them and kind of they learn how exactly they want it to be done. Where a guy like JJ Redick, he has no hangups. He has no specific set in his ways. I'm sure he has his ideas. I'm sure he has his ideologies about, the game of basketball and how it should be played and, how guys should fit and stuff. But he's not going to be married to any specific idea. Where you see coaches, like a lot of these head coaches or assistant coaches, they only know what they know. Right? So they're only going to be able to stay within this little box, which is a problem that you see with a lot of these first-time head coaches, first-time assistants. Here's the thing. All of these guys on the list aren't people of experience. Now, this is very possible, just kind of the first wave of interviews. Right? It's very possible that we see more of these on the horizon. You have like Micah from the Minnesota Timberwolves that the Lakers have had them linked to. Like, basically every possibility from a coaching standpoint have all been linked to the Lakers at one point or another. There was even a report that came out yesterday that was like, it's still Tyronn Lue and JJ Redick. Those are the 2 options that the Lakers are highest on. And so, again, if I had to bet on it, I think it's JJ Redick, right? Like, if I had to place early wagers, probably go with JJ Redick. I think out of everyone on the list, I think the safest would be Kenny Atkinson. But I think the upside would be JJ Redick, because I think he'd come in, he'd immediately have the respect and demand from LeBron James. With that, everyone else just kind of falls into place. All of your ducks kind of end up in a row. But as far as Kenny Atkinson goes, right, because I've spoken enough about JJ Redick. Again, I'm not against the JJ Redick signing. Obviously, I have my concerns. Obviously, I have my reservations, which I've talked about heavily in these coaching videos. And it's primarily he has the brain. He has the experience from, a player and personnel standpoint. And he understands what goes into it. But it's just, can he handle all of the ins and outs that go on with the head coach? A lot that goes on behind the scenes. But somebody like a Kenny Atkinson, right? Some experience. He's a guy that, is very analytical, right? He's kind of by the numbers and by the book, which can be a good thing. but it can also be a bad thing depending on how this roster shapes up, right? Because what's today's NBA? You spread the floor, you take 43s, you do but if we don't have the personnel with guys that can just, shoot great, because the Lakers, how have they had success? Playing an inside, dominating the paint, leading the league in free throw attempts, right? And then playing out, inside out, right? Even with Darvin Ham and him trying to do the 1 in 4 out or the 5 wide, right? Like all of these things that he's trying to do, we still dominate on the interior. Because you have Anthony Davis, you have LeBron James. So my thing is that, do you get too analytical and it's like, okay, well, we need Anthony Davis. You got to shoot. I need you to shoot. Remember when Darvin Ham made the joke of hey, I need Anthony Davis to shoot 6 threes a game? He wasn't being serious. He was just trying to instill confidence in Anthony Davis. My concern with the head coach that's too analytical is that he's hey, you can shoot. You should be shooting more, right? We need you out on the perimeter taking 4 or 5 threes a game, which I don't need. Even if we get another big, I don't want him taking 4 or 5. He needs to be in his bread and butter spot, right? Give me the money range, right? Give me that 15 in, right? That's where Anthony Davis lives. That's where he dominates, and I want that to continue. Now, I'm not saying that he goes overboard with it, but again, you're trusting a guy that you don't have this extensive resume. You do have a little bit, but you don't have this crazy extensive resume. And previous teams didn't have what the Lakers currently have and what the roster kind of most likely than not shapes up as. Now we'll see what the Lakers do as far as trades go and how they kind of restructure this roster. They're very limited on what they can sign in free agency, right? It's basically going to be just kind of vet minimums, right? Everything that the Lakers do to kind of reshape this roster is all going to come from trades, more likely than not, right? Maybe you get a guy or two on a flyer, that would be cool, right? Like a Kevin Porter Jr. or something like that, right? He needs to kind of regain confidence in the league. Maybe he comes in and can change the narrative with him and kind of use the Lakers brand to do so. That is always a possibility. We've seen people do that. Obviously we need a center, but problem is all the good centers we don't have the money for. And so now you're hoping that maybe somebody takes a discount. I think realistically you're probably boiling down to an Andre Drummond. Can you convince him to take a vet minimum, right? Come to Lakers. But the Lakers could have their taxpayer mid-level, but again, depending on what the Lakers do in the trade market, Lakers, you got to be careful you don't get your hard cap. It makes things difficult. So we'll see. We'll see how the Lakers shape it up. But obviously, whatever coach you're going to hire, you want to bring them in immediately, because the sooner you can bring them in, the sooner you can start the process of, okay, we got to get into the draft. We're probably not going to keep any of the draft picks, but what kind of guys do you like? What kind of system do you want to implement? How do you want to approach this offseason? As far as player and personnel go, you got to round out your bench and get all the coaching staff, right? Once you get into the trade market and you get into these conversations, you want your head coach to be a part of that and for them to kind of oh yeah, hey, instead of that guy, see if you can get this guy, type thing, because this guy would fit better for what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to accomplish. So, out of the 4 guys, I'd go Kenny Atkinson, JJ Redick, and then David Edelman, and then James. Again, to me, it's Kenny Atkinson, I think, is the safest bet, right? I think Edelman, he comes from, again, great coaching tree, father, Rick Edelman, right? So there is that connection there. So I think he could potentially do well. But my thing is get the guy that, has the understanding of modern basketball, and that's kind of his bread and butter, what he's known for, being that highly analytic X's and O's guy. Go get him, or take the upside play in a JJ Redick. It's where I'm at with these two things. But again, I really think it's going to be JJ Redick. I really do. I think it more likely than not, I think it's either Kenny Atkinson or JJ Redick. I really lean towards JJ Redick because he's got the LeBron factor. And I know they said LeBron isn't part of the coaching hire, but come on, they're not doing anything without LeBron. I'm not saying that he's going to go in there and be if they want to hire Kenny Atkinson, he's no, absolutely not. You need to hire JJ Redick. But to tell me that they're not going to at least run it by LeBron, you don't think that they had the coaching list and were like, hey, Bron, out of these guys, which guys do you like? I'd really like a Kenny Atkinson, JJ Redick, David Edelman, right? Like these guys, like, come on. Like, I would be shocked if LeBron isn't at least in the know as far as the head coaches go. And I just think, his connections and relationships with JJ Redick, I think that there's, and again, I know a lot of people have concerns about the first year head coach, not even with just JJ Redick, but like, David Edelman, some of these other assistants, right? But not all of them are terrible. I mean, most of them, wasn't Eric Spoelstra, wasn't he in like the film room or something like that before he became a head coach? Like you look at a lot of these guys, again, like you don't know until you're in the thick of it, right? You never know what a head coach is going to do until they're there. Like Darvin, again, going back, Luke Walton. Luke Walton was so highly sought. Everybody were stumbling over each other to try to go get Luke Walton. And now he's like the fourth assistant with Cleveland, right? Same thing with Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham had like something like 11 interviews or something like that and chose the Lakers. Like the Lakers didn't choose him. Like he had other offers because a lot of people thought he was going to be the next guy. He was the next guy in line. Bet he was going to be the next great head coach. And, maybe he does become that. And again, I've said it before, I'm rooting for him, maybe elsewhere. I think he needs to go to a younger, more impressionable team where he can kind of go through his hiccups, have better control and demand. But, again, like Steve Kerr, right? A lot of these guys that we know today are like, man, these guys are really good head coaches. They all started as not being a head coach, right? Everyone starts as a first-year head coach. And just some guys have it, some guys don't. And, hopefully whoever they hire, which again, but you gotta get a Terry Stotts or somebody on the bench, whoever you, even if you hire a Kenny Atkinson, you need to get a Terry Stotts or somebody right there on the side of him to kind of help him and guide him. You got to do that with whoever you hire. You got to get a head coach or a former head coach as an assistant, whoever that may be. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Out of these 4 interviews, which one do you like the most? Are you Kenny Atkinson, David Edelman, JJ Redick, whoever it is? Is there somebody else that you want to add to that list? Again, this might just be the first wave of interviews. It's very possible the Lakers may take their time and go through the process of trying to find somebody. We'll see how it goes. But again, how you feel, whatever thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.